Hello! Welcome to the Flute 360 podcast, where we incorporate a panoramic view of flute-related topics. I am your host, Heidi K. Begay, and this is episode 128, an interview with NR Media. Flute 360 is launching 2 innovative classes to help you thrive in today's climate. Do you find yourself wanting a space for your unique voice, ideas, and offerings to be heard? Unfortunately, in our current times, a lot of in-person opportunities have been lost. Because of this, I am encouraging you to consider digital opportunities for yourself and your business. I am offering 2 4-week classes titled The Podcasting Musician. Create your music podcast on a low budget to amplify your voice and offerings. In these classes, we will build your podcast from the ground up. Podcasting has been growing steadily for the last 15 years, and it continues to soar even during a pandemic. Remote classes begin on November 3rd and December 15th, 2020. Register today at heidikbegay.com/thepodcastingmusician. See you soon. Hi everyone, welcome back to another Flute 360 podcast episode. I'm so glad that you have tuned in today. Whether you are a new or an avid listener, please go ahead and subscribe to your favorite podcast app. So whether it's Spotify, Stitcher Radio, Apple Podcast, go ahead and subscribe because I do not want you to miss out on the free weekly content that goes out every Saturday. So, without further ado, I would love to introduce my 3 lovely guests, Jolene, Taylor, and Nicole, through the NR Media team. Welcome, ladies, and I'm so glad that you are here.
Hello. Thanks so much for having us, Heidi.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for carving out time out of your busy schedules, and it's so wonderful to see all 3 of your faces in one spot.
Yay.
Yay. So I'm so glad that Taylor earlier said, hey, we've all done individual podcast episodes before, but never together. And that was actually intentional. I thought, oh my gosh, Nicole's on this podcast, Jolene's been featured on this podcast, Taylor on that. There has not been a group NR Media. I need to do that because, you ladies are a powerhouse, so we need to bring you together.
Thank you. We're excited to finally be able to chat together.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Cool. So for those of you who may not have checked out the other episodes in this series, episodes 125, 126, and 127, I was really inspired by just our current climate, right? All of us are flutists. Those others who are musicians tuning into the episode today, we've been hit with a whirlwind, with COVID. And, my heart really went out to everybody. And I thought, what are the opportunities out there? What are some digital opportunities that we can provide musicians with in the fact that, gigs are being dropped and in-person events are being dropped? What can we utilize? And so I've been talking this whole month with Dr. Garrett Hope, Adam Wolf, and Jason Heath about their podcasts and what opportunities they're bringing in. So, typical Heidi, I thought, okay, I'm going to bring this full circle and talk with the media website designer gurus to showcase and to pick your brains on this very topic. So does that sound good?
Sounds good to us.
Awesome. So I just wanted to lay out the groundwork just so that others could hop on board and know where our minds are with all of that. Cool. So before we totally get into today's content, can you ladies talk a little bit about yourselves and our media? I'd love to hear your backgrounds.
Yeah. So I'm going to go first and introduce NR Media and what we do as a business, and then we can all kind of talk about ourselves individually. So NR Media stands for Nicole Ricardo Media, aka my name, Nicole Ricardo. So I am the NR behind NR Media, and I kind of started it on my own at first. But, as word spread, there aren't really many other musicians who focus on, digital marketing, web design, all that specifically for other musicians. So, as word started spreading and started getting more clients, I, needed help. So Jolene has been pretty much helping me since the very beginning, honestly. But, now once we brought Taylor on, we were kind of like, okay, like we're all doing interviews and talking to people about things, and we talk about what we do, but we don't really have like a name for ourselves. So we're like, okay, we're going to be NR Media, and that's what we're doing. So, yes, NR Media, we work with a lot of classical musicians, but we do also work with other creative entrepreneurs and small businesses. We primarily do brand and web design, as well as graphic design, brand photography. We're kind of an all-in-one, one-stop shop. You want to make everything look beautiful, make sure it's going to convert. I'm all about conversions, which I'm sure we'll talk a lot about. That is what we are here for. And then for me personally, hi, my name is Nicole Ricardo. I have both of my degrees, my bachelor's and my master's in flute performance from Florida State University, which is kind of crazy because now obviously I'm doing something very different than that. I do still play. I sub with some different orchestras, which is fun, but obviously not right now so much. But I've been doing marketing and social media stuff since college, really. I started at FSU. I worked in the Office of Admissions there. And so I would sometimes help out with their, social media team. And then I ran a woodwind quintet where I did, all of our marketing, social media, fundraising, doing grants, like all the things, right? Then after I graduated, I had to get a normal 9-to-5. And so through that avenue, I started doing in a more official capacity, doing digital marketing, social media marketing, website design, and, worked at a few different places doing that. And then eventually I was kind of like, I have all of this information. Like, why am I not using this to help my people? So I made the transition and quit and, started my own thing. And now here we are.
Nice. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And Jolene?
Yes. So as Nicole said, I have been working with NR Media for quite a while. I don't have a start date. I don't remember when, but we've started working on things together. And I met Nicole at Florida State as a graduate TA. We were, across the hall from each other. So obviously Flute brought us together. We both moved to Austin, Texas. So we're still close by. And I think when we moved to Austin, we spent a lot of time talking about Instagram and social media. We just spend a lot of time talking about it. So it's kind of always been on topic of conversation. So I think it just naturally, as Nicole started really going for it, I'm glad to be a part of it too. In an official capacity, I am the creative director and do branding and graphic design and photography and things like that. So I get to do all kinds of fun, creative things. I met Taylor on Instagram too. So it's a Flute Instagram thing, but that's a segue for Taylor.
Yeah. So my name's Taylor, and I actually met Nicole taking her course, Create Your Career, and life got really great, and I got to work with her and for her. And so I think it's been about a year and a half since we've been officially working together. And so I am the brand manager and website designer for NR Media, also a flutist. And I have some FOMO right now because you're all in Texas and I'm in Boston. But it's really amazing to get to work with all of them on a daily basis. And Nicole and I didn't even meet until like a year after I was working for her, which is so crazy to only have video calls. And even right now, like, you know, we're not in the same place, but we're all like basically together. So yeah, it's really wonderful. And it's funny because I think about this all the time, that my dad actually owned his own business in our house doing like website design and marketing. And he actually transferred old film reels for people. And I said my whole life, I never want to be self-employed. And here I am today, self-employed. But it's absolutely wonderful. And it's really cool to be a part of this process and get to work with our people and still be a part of the music community, but really get to use our individual strengths to, I think, enhance the industry.
Oh, I love that. You could not have said that any better.
Thank you.
No, that's really cool to hear all of your backgrounds, and piggybacking off of what Taylor said, right? We're all separated. Yes, Jolene and Nicole and I are in Texas, but Austin and Dallas-Fort Worth. But just look at what this community has done and how it's brought people together. And, you know, I worked and collaborated, worked under Taylor. Taylor worked with me on my social media, you know, and that was when I was in Greece for 4 months. And she was very patient with me through choppy internet and a choppy call. I'm like, oh my gosh, my internet here in Greece is not good. And she was just so patient and kind and warm. And the tips that she gave me, oh my gosh, I still pull up that PDF every week and I check off things. And so I just say that to bring it together, just to show like these connections, right? And just to kind of put out there that I know firsthand that you guys are extremely professional and a great group of lovely ladies. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So since we've talked about your background and everything, let's dive into today's topic. I know it's vast, but I think there's some very specific questions that we can hone in on. The other thing that I kind of want to say and just throw this out there is that, one, as a flutist and as an entrepreneur, the one thing that I'm really attracted to you ladies is that you ladies are such a cheerleader for all of us. So keep rooting, because when I hear Nicole or Jolene or Taylor get on and say, you guys can do it, you guys can do it, I'm like, yeah, we can. So keep it up, because we definitely need some spirit in our life. So I would love to pick your brains first. Before we get into website design and social media, can we talk about mindset? And the reason I bring that up is because since we're talking about digital platforms and the like, I noticed a shift in me for my podcast. I treated it like a hobby for a very long time. And at some point I thought, okay, I'm getting burnt out. I need to actually monetize through this. And I had this shift and I said, okay, this is a business opportunity. And then everything started syncing up into this beautiful, line. So the reason why I bring that up, I know it's personal, but I am sure I'm not the only one. And I'm asking that to see if you guys felt the same way when you started your business, and or did you see a shift for your clients?
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and take over this one to start. Mindset stuff is incredibly important. I will say personally for me, every single period of growth or decline that I have experienced since starting this journey, every single time I can trace it directly back to my mindset, whether it's either holding me back or helping to propel me forward. And I will say one of the biggest issues that I personally have seen, whether it's with a student or just somebody who's, sending me a DM on Instagram, is imposter syndrome. That seems to be a huge one. And, obviously that's we could do a whole podcast episode just talking about imposter syndrome, but I feel like the most important thing for people to know is you have to believe in yourself. Nobody else is going to believe in you if you don't believe in you. And so it's kind of you have to set aside all of the self-doubt and, the fears, the anxiety, it's going to be there. It's what's that book, Taylor, Big Magic, right? Where Liz Gilbert talks about, fear is always going to come along for the ride, but you can't let it be in the driver's seat. And when it comes to imposter syndrome specifically, I really, really believe, and I have seen this through my own experience, through my clients, through my students, over and over and over again, action and results are going to crush imposter syndrome. As soon as you get out there and you start working with students or, doing it and getting results and seeing, like, proving to yourself, oh, wow, I actually can do this, it's going to crush the imposter syndrome. But that's never going to happen if you keep yourself stuck and you're just like, oh, I can't really do this, like, I'm afraid or what. Like, no, we're just going to, like, you can feel those things, you can acknowledge them, write them in your journal, and then let's just set them aside and just, keep going. Just take that little baby step forward and let's do it. And then the other thing that I do want to mention is exactly what you were mentioning, looking at your podcast as a hobby versus as a business. Ooh, that's the other big thing that I see that holds people back, and especially musicians. They'll call it like, oh, I'm just, I just have this gig, or like, I just have this like side hustle, I'm just like trying this out. We're afraid to commit to it because we're afraid of publicly failing is really what it comes down to, right? Because as soon as you start putting stuff out there and saying, hey, yeah, I'm starting this podcast, here we go. Or, hey, I'm starting a flute studio, open for lessons, send me your kids, right? And if it's crickets, we're afraid of, everybody else around us and on Facebook and Instagram and our family and our friends seeing that and being like, oh, what'd you do? Right. And so we like guilt and shame ourselves to like, because of that fear, and we let it hold us back. And so by literally just that wording of calling something like, oh, it's just my hobby, or like, yeah, it's just my side hustle, or like, it's just my little thing that I do in my free time, just that wording is keeping you stuck playing small, because it's keeping you from actually committing to it. And yeah, it's scary to commit to something. Like, it was freaking scary when I first started this business, and I'm like, I'm a freaking business owner. I run Nicole Ricardo Media, and we're a digital marketing agency. I'm like, in my brain, of course, yeah, I'm like, oh, who the heck am I? Like, I'm just a flute player. How am I going to run a business? I'm not a business owner. Like, who do I think I am? But like, you just have to do it, because as soon as you, like, it really is as simple as just making the decision. You just have to make the choice, like, okay, this is my business, and you're going to show up a heck of a lot differently, right? Even on those days where I'm like, I don't necessarily want to like sit down and, post on Instagram today. I'm like, okay, Nicole, this is your business. You can either sit here and do this thing that you may not necessarily want to do right at this moment, or you can not do it today and not do it tomorrow and not do it because, maybe you'll never feel like it. And then you're going to be back in a 9-to-5 doing what some other person is telling you to do that you probably also don't want to do. So I would rather, just do it now and be able to still work for myself. So anywho, I could rant about that all day, but I will let if Taylor and Jolene have anything to add to that.
I would just say that mindset I found is super important for business, because when they're not two separate things, they really are one and the same. And I always find that when my mental health doesn't feel as great, I don't feel like I can work as well as I normally can. Or I also find that when I'm not speaking authentically, it doesn't resonate with people. But when I do speak authentically, it makes so much sense. And even when I've met people from Instagram, I've said to me, you seem just like who you are on Instagram. Like, you seem like the person that you're writing posts about, even if they haven't ever like watched my stories or heard my voice, they feel like they already know me. And that's what we want. So trying to be, I think you should, if you need to put on the like confidence jacket to get you to that next level, go ahead and do that, but never try and be someone that you're not and trying to be a fraud in order to succeed. So just remembering that, like, you have all the tools you need, or you will soon have the tools you need to get to that point. But just keep doing all the things that make you feel aligned and get you to that place, and it'll start showing through a lot easier.
I love that. And Jolene, anything that you would like to add?
That says it all. I mean, it is something I struggle with is I find this is one of my recurring negative thoughts is like, I don't want to run a business. Like, I just get annoyed with like little tasks and things. And I'm like, I want someone else to do all this for me. But when I can just I've learned how to sit myself down and do it and like put myself at my desk and just go through my task list. And when I've done like 45 seconds of one of those things, I'm like, I'm amazing. Like, wow, guys, I'm a business owner. Like, so I think taking action can also shift out of mindset too, which is you don't wait to be ready, just like start and then you'll feel it. Yeah. It's really helpful.
No, I love that. That's amazing. I love what all of you three ladies said. I resonate little pockets here and there. Nicole, when you specifically were talking about like, you know, these different hats, like, oh, I'm not a business owner, right? When I was going into this podcasting platform more and more, you know, I found myself telling myself, oh, you're not a business owner, you're not a podcaster, because the podcasting taught me to be different roles, like to be a marketer, to be a salesperson. I don't like to use the word salesperson. I like to use the word to engage people and to be an enroller, to enroll people into an offering rather than salesy, because I just think of like an icky car salesman, right, in the lot. But, you know, getting on calls for like corporate sponsorships with different flute makers and different flute shops. I'm like trying to sell these different packages and stuff. And a lot of times, like, you're right, that mindset, if I go in thinking, oh, you're not a salesperson, then I'm not going to make the sale. You know, it really transcends and they can feel that. And so you're right, Taylor. And what all of you ladies are saying is you have to put on that confidence jacket, right? And I had to at some point like own, okay, yeah, I didn't go to school for marketing or I didn't go to school to be a salesperson, but guess what? You're here and you have stepped into this role, so let's learn. And it's really neat because like when I hear this dialogue and I'm talking to these, you know, corporations and stuff and I get off the phone, I'm like, who is this girl? Like, I don't know who this person is, you know, just because it's a different dialogue. But to bring it full circle, I think it's really important to hone these different skill sets, right? So that way you can make that business work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just a little side tangent on what you were saying about sales. That's, like if you want to be self-employed, I know everybody is like, oh, sales, used car salesman, gross. Like I don't want to be salesy. I can't sell myself. I can't market myself, but like, love you. But here's the reality. Like money is the lifeblood of your business. Like if you don't know how to sell and you feel icky about selling and you don't sell, you're not going to make any money. And that's whether you're trying to do web designs or if you're trying to get new flute students, right? Like if you're trying to get new flute students, you have to be able to walk into that masterclass, hold a bomb masterclass, and at the end, sell those kids on flute lessons with you, right? Like it's all sales. And so the biggest thing with sales, just like another quick hot mindset tip, I think people really need to like shift their mindset on sales specifically. Like you don't have to call it sales, you know, it can just be, I'm just talking about what I do, right? And what I'm really good at. But the fact of the matter is everybody has a superpower, right? Everybody has something that's unique to you that makes you different, whether that's for your flute lessons and the way you teach, blah, 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 right? But there's something that you do differently than and better than anybody else probably does. And you have to be able to communicate that really well. So that way other people can understand that and will want to work with you too. You know, like if you as the CEO of your business cannot tell me why you do what you do, the way you do, either better or, you know, differently than everybody else in your industry, like that's a big problem. And you're gonna have trouble getting students or getting gigs or booking new clients or whatever you're trying to do, you know? So you really can't like, no, we're kind of trained, like it's ingrained in us not to like toot our own horns and be humble and blah, blah, blah. But like, you have to be able to communicate those things and you have to kind of put on your like, yeah, I'm going to toot my own horn for a minute. Like, here's what I'm freaking awesome at. And I can help you, you know, level up your Instagram. So that way you are consistently selling out your offers, right? You have to be able to say that and communicate it. Because otherwise you're selling yourself short, you know, like, so don't sell yourself short. So there's my little pep talk on sales.
Nice. I love it. The one tool that I use, and I don't know, this is kind of a question off ad lib here, but one tool that I use before I get onto a call or before I talk to like a master class, and like you said, at the end of the master class, sell those flute lesson spots or whatever, is I have a whiteboard. And I'm a big believer in seeing is believing. And so I have like 20 to 40 value points that I, Heidi, offer. And before I get on that call, I just, look up, go through the 20, 40 points and just remind myself what I offer. And sure enough, the conversation just goes so smoothly and I'm more confident, and it's just, it's a really good tool for me. So are there any tools that you guys utilize for yourselves and your business in that regard?
So for the sales calls and stuff like that, I primarily handle those. And I don't have like a whiteboard, but I do have, I know the points for what we do differently than other web designers, right? Like a lot of the things that we believe really strongly in, most other web designers don't do. Like when we build a website, we use conversion-based formatting. Like we're not just building your website to make it look pretty. Like, yeah, we want it to look pretty, but I also want to make sure that I'm placing things really strategically to make sure that if we get somebody on your homepage, they're going to take that action that we want them to take, right? So I can talk about that. We also include SEO, search engine optimization, because that's something most web designers don't do. They just build you a great website and you just paid, $5 or $10,000 and you're like, okay, great. Well, now nobody can find it on Google. Like to me, that's just stupid. I'm like, why are you going to spend that much on a website if nobody can find it? So like we do SEO included in all of our web designs, so I do, it's not like a whiteboard, but I just, have those points where I know like, okay, these are the things that make us very different than most other web designers or whatever. These are our kind of, the things that we're awesome at, like you have your list for, Heidi. It just makes it so much easier. It's like, I'm not even trying. I'm not being salesy. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm not pushy at all. I hate being pushy about things. I'm just simply letting you know, hey, here are the things that we do. And if you go with us or if you don't, like, just make sure that you ask, other people about this, because most people aren't going to do this for you, No,
that's great. Taylor or Jolene, anything that you want to add to that?
No, I think the one thing that just comes to mind is, I think it was earlier this summer, whatever the timeline is, but we read a book, or like Nicole sent us parts of a book that was kind of on like team building and how your processes that your company uses. And it was really important, which I think we had generally done, but it was basically just saying like all getting on board with using the same kind of language so that while we all like are very similar underlying core values, making sure that we're really saying the same things in the same way is really important, because language is important and we need to get that across. So that was a really interesting thing that, again, like I don't think we necessarily thought of right away, but we really wanted to like hone in on that. And it was really helpful for streamlining our company and making sure that we were just all on the same page so that we could do the best for the people we were talking to.
I love that strategy. Yeah, no, that's really smart. Great. So, Jolene, would you like to add anything to that, or are you good?
Just one quick thing of like from a flute playing perspective, I think is, for me, it's going into new student Skype trial calls of like the first time somebody who took the time to apply after all the things I've put out, they're ready to take a lesson with me. And, the first few times I'm just terrified I'm going to blow it. Like they're not going to sign up. And after a few times, going back to what you said about like, this is what I have to offer. After a few times, I've figured out that it goes the best when I follow my formula, and I like have a formula of the key points that I can describe very well to get them an immediate reaction of like improving their flute sound in the clearest way possible. So I try not to deviate from that, even if it seems like they're coming in with like specific questions. I touch on what they want to talk about, but I never leave that big thing out, because it's the one thing that kind of I can do the best, and it makes me feel confident too, because it usually goes well. So just kind of knowing what that thing is, and keeping a formula, keeping almost a script if it's going to keep you on track to help. If I don't, like, I'll like help them count eighth notes, and then they'll hang up and be like, that was worthless. So I make sure to keep it about what I'm good at doing.
That's amazing. Yeah, your voice and specifically what you have to offer. Yeah. That's amazing. So speaking of like students and master classes and things like that, I know you ladies do a lot of talks, remote talks. I see like Instagram, stories, I'm at this school or whatever, pre-COVID. And when I do my talks with different universities and colleges, I'm still blown away by the number of musicians who are trying to make it or trying to get their degree who don't yet have a website. And so I find myself telling younger professionals and students who will be graduating, in order to make it as a 21st century musician, you have to have a website. And I know you ladies are probably going to piggyback and say, not just a website, but a website that works. Can you talk about the importance of having a website as a modern day musician?
Yeah, absolutely. At this point, and for years now, I mean, it's not like there's 3 flutists or 3 violinists, or you have so much competition. And so you need to use everything out there in order to stand out, to make yourself known, and to do everything possible to make it, quote unquote. And I will say that I was certainly one of those very head in the cloud kind of musicians. I just wanted to play the flute. That's all I knew. I wanted to make the world a better place with music, and I just didn't know. And even when I started my own Instagram for Flute, it wasn't until someone told me in grad school, like, hey, you should start an online presence. And I was like, oh yeah, like that seems like a good idea. But like, again, like the pieces were not connecting. But at this point now that I very much know the importance of it, it makes a huge difference, because your website also is a place where you can showcase everything you have to offer. And it's also, at the end of the day, a super standard practice for marketing. Like, I don't know why people don't think that, but it's been around for a while. It's not new. It's not even controversial. It's very standard. And it's a really common thing, like, to refer people to. And I almost find it a bit unprofessional when you don't have something to refer people to, and they say like, oh, like, what's your website? And you're like, oh, well, just like check out my Instagram. But like, that's not the same thing. So with all that to be said, your website is also a great place to, like, it's yours. You own it, and you get to decide what goes where and what you're telling people. You're sharing your story, and you're giving them a place to read about what you have to offer and what problems you have to solve for people. So by not having that, you're like losing a tool, and you're losing a possibility of marketing yourself and landing a job, or really creating new opportunities for yourself by not having that. So it's a thing, pretty basic almost to have to. And so with all that, I'm actually going to pass it off to Jolene, because the importance of once they get to your site is a whole new level. And it really comes down to the branding of it and how you're reflecting through your website, and if it's coming off as you and in a way that people want to keep learning about and knowing, and then continuing to work with you.
Yeah, the branding is really important, because branding elicits a feeling and an emotion, and people tend to stick by, take action, buy your thing, want to work with you based on how you make them feel. So if they get to your website and it feels confusing, not just like the layout or what you offer is confusing, but the actual like visual or the navigation of it, or you can't tell if they understand how they even made their own website. It just elicits confusion. And that's a good moment where I'm going to just go onto Facebook real quick, because autopilot, I'm on Facebook now. Like, I don't want to stick around and deal with your website that's confusing me. So the branding is something that ties it together and can hold the attention. And something interesting I've realized this week is I ended up on some website that was like a personal website. And I realized that website was aiming to like be a showcase of that person's resume more so than anything else, like just a bio, some photos, and here's where I'm going to be in 4 weeks from now. And that was sort of it. And there wasn't anything for me to to grab onto, like, okay, well, what does this do for me? And I think even if you have, you have to have some information about yourself to show that you're reputable. That's very important. Don't leave that out. But you have to sort of give something of value, and a way that you can also show that you are reputable and show about yourself without describing it in words, taking up your whole website to describe, this is how good I am. Just the visual aspect and the impact that your branding has can do that for you. And I think it really strengthens everything. It's something else that makes you memorable as well. And I always think about branding as, it's not going to go on your brand board with your color palettes and font, but your personality is a part of that and what makes you memorable. And I think it'll do you a disservice to not include your personality and things that people can think of you. Like, people go to Target and see something of color, like a rainbow pattern or like bright whatever, and they send me a picture and they were thinking of me in Target. I've done a good job of being memorable. It's not something I did on purpose, or like I made this thing up and made sure people, associated with me. It's something that happened naturally. And, I could think of some other people and like, so-and-so, like I think of whatever with this person or whatever with this person that has nothing to do with what they do, but I feel connected to them as a person because I know something about them on that level. So that's important as well. I think that works best on social media because that's a great place to be casual and introduce yourself. But it definitely shouldn't be overlooked. It's really important, I think.
And it sounds like to me like an emotional connection is what you're saying. And then that definitely also converts, does it not? Because if I feel like at Target, if I'm like, oh, Rainbow, Jolene, I take a picture, then your name is on the tip of my tongue, right? So I don't know, just when you're describing like a very personal thing like colors and Target, and let me share this with Jolene, it reminds me of her. It just sounds very personal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And Nicole?
Well, I mean, kind of jumping off that, branding is basically like, it's literally a marketing strategy in being memorable. Like, that's what branding is, and just another kind of tidbit, because I'm definitely the more like analytical one out of us. Like, I like, statistics and all that good stuff. One of the big things I think to keep in mind with websites, and I don't want to like knock DIY websites because I have seen some really great ones. However, kind of like what Jolene touched on, if you go to somebody's website and it's like, okay, this is just basically your glorified resume, right? Like, that's not talking about what's in it for me. So like a big, if for whoever is listening, if you only take one thing away from this episode, keep in your brain that literally all anybody else cares about is what's in it for me. And like, that might sound not super great, but like really that's all they want to know. If somebody goes to your website, they're going to your website for a reason, right? They either have some sort of problem or they're looking to make their life better or easier in some way, right? So if you're not clearly communicating with them, and this is going to be primarily through your writing, right? And your copy and, the content that you have on there, if you're not clearly communicating with them, like, this is the transformation that I can offer you, this is how I can help you, they're not going to care and they're going to leave your website. And once somebody leaves your website, there is an 88% chance that they are never going to return. Like, that's huge. 88% of people, if they leave your website, they will not return to it. So that's just something that, keep in mind. I guess just a little like, toot our own horns, like just go by one of our website templates or, like research it for yourself on, conversion copy. Obviously, if you research it yourself, it's going to take a really long time. But anyway, I just make sure that you're not putting up a website just to put up a website, because if it's bad, it can actually be doing you a bigger disservice than just not having a website. So there's that.
Yeah, you want a website that's, put together with intention, so that way it converts rather than just having it to have it. I agree with that. Cool. So after I've hired, or the listener has hired NR Media to do this for them, because it's overwhelming, it really is, like building the website from scratch and everything. Like, why not hire experts, right? So say you've redesigned a website for Jane or Maria. Now that the website is up, what's the best way to go about like selling her or his product, services, offerings? Like, what's the best way to approach this?
So with what we do, we specifically set things up with the actual layout of the site, with the copy template. We give clients the framework for how to present their offerings in the most effective way, and we lay it out in the most effective way as well. There is so much information and psychology and just stuff. If you just go for it, sure, it might convert. People might buy whatever it is, your ebook. But if you take advantage of the actual strategy behind how people navigate a website or how people find your website, that is what jazzes all of us up. And that's part of what NR Media presents is we want to get you found and, get people to take action. That's what we do. And, something that proves that your website is working is that people are finding you from different angles and kind of branching off. There are different strategies as well as how people find you. Big one is SEO, search engine optimization, something that we do that we're real excited about because there's a lot of people in the world that can go on Google. That's a big audience that could potentially find your thing. And if you present your offering in such a way that people feel like, oh man, I can't not buy this because it's going to improve the thing that's frustrating me, they're going to be super excited to pay however much you're offering for, unless it's like $20 million for a book. That's probably too much. It's not unreasonable. But if people find you and then you can really sell them in a way that Nicole was talking about earlier with sales and speaking to pain points is really important. Speaking to how are you going to solve frustrations? Your resume next to buy my book. There's a lot of books. I don't know, and there's a lot of smart people who have written books, but I don't know why this book is going to be life-changing. So really, that's part of what we make sure is there for the conversion factor on your site. And just other platforms as well for how people find you other than SEO, social media. Again, we said you have to talk about the thing that you do. You have to talk about your offering, and you have to do it more than once. I think Nicole at one point or one of you has said, it takes at least 7 times for something to register in people. They have to hear it at least 7 times. Maybe it's more than that. So you have to tell people more than once. And for me personally, just a testament to this is I set my own SEO up well. It's a long game. I've had my website for a long time. I've thought about SEO a lot. I didn't really post anything on Instagram for quite a while. And my SEO was working so well that people still signed up for lessons. I didn't have to really be there. So SEO was taking over for me in the past couple months. It was working. YouTube as well was also working for me. People were finding my website and downloading things, sending me messages. So investing in multiple things, some of them are really sustainable. Google search, pretty sustainable. YouTube, pretty sustainable. Instagram is really, I think it's super cool for the relationship factor, because you can't really have a relationship with someone on Google. And relationships are very important with people liking you. Know, like, trust. They have to know, like, and trust you. Instagram is a great place for that to happen. Facebook as well, because it's more like daily interaction. So I think all those factors are really what help people find you and remember you and want to take action with whatever you've put on your website.
No, really well said. Nicole or Taylor?
I think Jolene pretty much covered it all.
No, that was really, that was awesome. I learned a lot in that, a lot of great gold nuggets. So since you've been talking about social media, that's a great segue into our next topic. What are the common pitfalls that clients run into when it comes to managing their social media platforms?
For this, I would say that they show up once and then they don't show up again. If I had $1 for every account that I came across that started this thing and then they got all these followers and then I just never heard from them again. But are you still in business? It raises all these questions. So that's one, just thinking that they can put it out there and then never touch it again. Not, like we said before, not showing or not telling your audience what you do in a way that's clear and that they can take away from that is a disservice, and a lot of people are still finding their footing with that. And again, like it can be hard to talk about what you do without feeling like, listen to me say this all the time, but there's a way of doing it that's more collaborative and saying like, you're having a relationship, like this is how we can work together instead of this is just about me. So I think a lot of times it's really just like presenting. The issue is that people present themselves as like, listen to me talk and then buy my product, or like they're just constantly selling. It's not about this community, or it's not about how you're interacting with others. And so that's where a lot of people fall flat. And if they're not doing that on social media, a place that's super casual, it's going to be an issue to get them to their website, because if they're not baseline liking them as a person or liking what their company is showing off in their online presence, they're definitely not going to check out their offers in which they have to pay for. So I think it really starts at your social media and how you're communicating with your audience and potential clients, and then working towards them on your website, and then like really like, for lack of a better word, like sealing the deal and like really getting them to be like I want this. And something I always think about is last year, I went to a concert and they were having like us artists signing after, and they had vinyl records, and I was like, awesome, like I'm gonna have them sign this. And then I got home and I remembered I didn't even have a record player. Like I loved them so much that I bought and like was so committed to them and what they stood for and their music that I bought the record, and then was like, oh yeah, I should probably have something to play this on, but like this is so important. And that's how, like, from a flutist standpoint, like that's how people should feel if you're putting out a solo flute album. That's probably like the 2020 thing that's coming out. All of these solo flute albums, you need to make people feel like they love it so much that they're going to buy it even if they don't have a place to play it. Like that's how people should feel about you, and not in a false or inorganic way, but in a way that they're like, yeah, like this piece that I've heard 18 times, like the Shamanat I've heard 18 times this month, they played it so well, or the way they played it so well made me fall in love that I bought their album, you know? So I think that there's ways to do that and present yourself in a super organic way that's not dirty or it's not fake. And that's how you can grow your online presence.
I love that. I need to buy your album, my CD album right now. Oh, shoot, I don't even have a CD player anymore. How am I going to play this thing, right? I love that story. Thank you for sharing that. Cool. Jolene or Nicole?
Just piggybacking, because I think that's super important, is, you know, getting people excited about what you're doing and, you know, being really clear about it, as well as just thinking and going back to branding, being memorable, being a person. And I think it's really important to not get caught up in the idea that to be professional, you have to be like flat in a way, or you have to just only be professional, or you can't veer off of the path of what your offerings are. I feel like it strengthens your offerings to be a person, as Taylor's saying, like she's so excited about this person that, yeah, I'm going to just do whatever you say. And my example of that is like the home edit is my favorite for organization. They have a Netflix show right now. Their social media, I think, does really well for them. They're super memorable. What they do is super memorable. They have really amazing organization stuff, but they have such big personalities that are super clear and memorable. People know that Clea likes champagne and Joanna likes robes and candy. Like, I know that because of social, like I watched their Instagram story and I could not forget it. And I also want to go spend all my money at the Container Store on their products. Like, I feel super invested because I feel like I just enjoy them as people. And the Container Store is expensive, but they've sold me on their whole brand, which includes their personality.
I feel like all of you three ladies, you don't know this, but I feel like all three of you ladies are very politely calling me out on my like faults. Like what you just said, Jolene, about you can be professional, but be yourself, you know, and that's easier said than done, at least in my perspective. Just because, like, I share with my listeners a lot of times, I feel like I'm stuck in, we all are, stuck in between two different generational gaps, right? So I'm older than you ladies. I'm not quite a millennial, but I'm not like the age of my teachers, right? And so I find myself stuck. The older generation is saying, be professional, suit and tie. And then, the younger generation is like, let your hair down a little bit, show your true colors. I'm like, oh my gosh, where is this healthy balance? So when you said that, I was like, yeah, I see. I feel really seen and being called out right now, because it's like, but you wouldn't have known that. But it resonates with me. And so I bring that to everyone's attention, because I'm learning something. And if I'm learning something, I hope somebody else out there can grab these gold nuggets and apply it to their life.
I feel that as well. And it's something that comes up for me too, is, what is too much? I really question myself often. And I do share vulnerable things of like just personal stories of how I'm feeling about things. And I question myself every time I do it. Like, this isn't professional. Like, I'm not gonna be allowed to teach people if I share that I'm struggling. Like, it comes up each time. And what then comes up after is, what does happen is that people don't really come to me and say, don't talk about this. That's literally never happened. It could bother somebody, but what does happen is that people can grab onto it and relate, and it forms a really real connection that, like, suddenly I'm just chatting with somebody else in the most authentic way possible. It doesn't feel like small talk. Like, it cuts down to like the real level. And so it's kind of like the Brene Brown vulnerability, like it leads to connection. So I've experienced that for sure, but it's on the front of my mind every time I share something, definitely. And you know your own boundaries as well, of like what's off limits, what you're not going to share about. So you can still, protect things that feel like I'm just not going to share about this, but there might be other things that you feel more comfortable sharing about that feel more personal. So if you ever feel pressure to like share something really vulnerable because it's going to perform well, like, don't do that. Know what feels right to you.
Yeah, here's a line and you went way past the line. Yeah, and just knowing those boundaries for yourself and, your privacy. I agree. Cool.
And I think that if you're having a hard time with that, is always asking yourself why. It's something I've been doing a lot recently, is just asking like, well, why am I doing this? Or why are other people saying this isn't traditionally how it's done? And if I do it this other way, are there going to be consequences, or is it going to be fine? And is it going to feel a lot more aligned with myself? So not just doing things because that's how it's been done before is something that is really, really helpful. So just saying like, okay, why am I doing this? And does it make sense to do it this way? Or is there another way? And can I trust that that's actually going to be better in the end?
I love that. Oh my goodness. I wish I could like steal all three of your ladies' like communication skills and vocabulary, and the way you just get very direct is just inspiring. And Nicole, do you want to say anything on this topic?
Yeah, so I'll switch gears on this a little bit, because Taylor and Jolene, I obviously covered, and I like 100% agree with all of that. It honestly is like kind of a big pet peeve of mine now when I see people online that are like super professional, and oh my God, don't even get me started on the About Me pages. Nicole Ricardo is originally like, we're not writing your eulogy here, okay? Like, let's be human. So yes, be real, be you, showcase your real personality. But something that Taylor mentioned when she was first answering this was also not being afraid to talk about what you offer. And when I say that, I mean literally on a regular basis. So like if you're trying to, let's say, okay, for example, me, I have a new free training video on, selling your offers on Instagram, right? So that's something that is going to go in my content calendar that I'm going to talk about on a weekly basis. Yeah, I'm still going to talk about me. I'm going to show my dogs playing tug of war in the, yard. I'm going to show my coffee. I'm going to talk about my anxiety or whatever is going on that week. But every single week, I'm also going to talk about, hey, I have this free training. Like, if you want to learn how to use Instagram to sell out your offers, you need to watch this free training, So creating an actual schedule where you're talking about your offers on a regular basis. And then the other biggest issue with social media, and this is honestly, I can't even tell you how many people I have had come to us being like, oh my God, I hired the social media manager and I'm not seeing any results from it. Okay, well, that's because there's a very big difference between people who are like, oh yeah, I can post your photos and, I can take this cute picture and a sassy caption and pop a couple hashtags on it and post it for you, versus, yes, I know how to run your social media to book you more clients, or I can run your social media to get you more sales of your book, right? Those are two very different things. And the differentiating factor here is creating an overall marketing strategy, which again is something I know is very foreign to most musicians, right? It's not something we really think about or want to think about, but you have to be very, very intentional with what you are doing and the content that you're putting out. So for example, on Instagram specifically, your free content, you should not just be putting out free content because, oh, well, I want to talk about this today, or, oh, this could be cool to talk about. Like, yes, still be yourself, put those in there, right? But in terms of educational value and, providing value, you need to be putting out content that is not about you and what you want. We need to put out content that your target audience wants. Who are you trying to attract? Who is your ideal client? What are they struggling with? What are the problems that they are having? And what content can you put out that's going to help them? Because then that's also going to allow them to build that know, like, trust with you, right? And see, oh, wow, yeah, Jolene just put up this awesome new post on double tonguing, and I did the exercise she recommended, and it really freaking helped me. Like, I can double tongue now. Of course, I'm going to book lessons for her when I'm looking for a teacher, So you have to be really intentional about that. And then the other big mistake I see is people don't use their free content to build demand for their paid products. That's another really big issue. We're just putting out, oh, I'm going to put out this how-to post and how to do this, and here's some more free content, and here's this free download, and here's this fun thing that you can do and this new exercise. But you have to do it very intentionally with a strategy in mind that's going to get them interested in understanding why they need your paid service, right? So you don't want to give them everything because that's what people pay you for, right? That would just be, don't do that. But you need to put out educational content in a way that's you want them to be like, oh, that's interesting. I want to learn more. And the way that they can learn more is by working with you one-on-one, by booking lessons with you, or, by enrolling in your Instagram course that will teach them exactly how to sell everything on Instagram, right? So whatever it is you do, your paid offer, you need to create an overall plan for your content to make sure that your free content is very strategically building demand for whatever it is you offer. And then once you start talking about it on a regular basis, right, that's going to help significantly increase your bookings.
I love that. And I'm going to piggyback off of that with just a really quick personal story, just because what you just said, Nicole, I wish I would have known a year ago or 2 years ago. You need content that converts. That's what I'm hearing you say. Yeah. And you can't just keep giving out free PDFs, this and that, because our time is precious. There's only, there's 24 hours in the day, but I'm only working 10 hours of it. I like to eat, I like to sleep. And so at some point, I can't just keep dishing out free content. And that's what I was talking about, this mind shift with the podcast. So instead of just putting out content, what's behind it? What is something that I can offer? Well, the quick example here is the last series with the Zoom help, remote lesson help, and recording your flute for a competition. So we used, our sister company, JK Media Productions, and I decided, okay, that strategy where you were just talking about how, yes, I'm going to be putting out 3 or 4 free episodes, but at the end of it, hire us for this, and these are our services. And let me tell you what, I have never had content convert so successfully in the past, from past experiences. And I learned a lesson. I was like, oh, I'm not just throwing out free content just for the heck of it. There needs to be a strategy behind it. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, mind blown. I need to be doing this more often. Because my time is valuable. So I'm just showing the example from a very humble place. I'm not, a guru in this in any regards. I'm still learning, but I did see a shift, and it was exciting to see see the hope, right? And to see some light on the path that you can do the same thing for, your business too.
Yeah. And that's it. I mean, just everything you said. Yes, because most people don't realize that that's how it works. Because I mean, it's not really something that most people talk about openly. To be honest with you, most people teach you this stuff inside of their like paid programs or paid coaching. So, I mean, here I am just saying, don't give away your best stuff for free, but saying this for free. But yeah, I mean, that's how you book conversions. And this is one of the big things with, the people out there who are constantly struggling and being like, oh my God, Instagram just takes so much time. And I'm spending all this time just, writing these captions and taking pictures and blah, blah, blah. And like, I don't have time for this, or, I need to be practicing and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, well, I mean, first of all, that tells me that you're not using your content correctly, because if you are using this strategy, then you're going to be getting bookings from it, right? Like, I'm all about work smarter, not harder. If something's not working for you, throw it in the trash and stop doing it. Okay. We don't have time to mess around. Like, we need stuff that's going to work and make money because we got bills to pay. You know what I'm saying? So, but doing this strategy is, it's that is how you make money. That's how you get conversions. You can't just come out cold and be like, oh, P.S. I just wrote this new book. It's so great. Buy it. Like, people are going to be like, okay, great. And like, maybe you'll get a couple sales from those people who just like freaking love you and want to support you. Right. But what about the rest of the people, right? What about those other, 500 people that follow you on Instagram, or 5,000 or 50,000? Like, what about all of those other people? How do we get them to convert? And that's how you get those conversions, is by using your free content to very strategically lead into your paid content.
Love it. Yes. So since we're talking about, converting, we probably already answered this question. And if we have, that's okay. We can totally scratch it. So when somebody does throw out their product, services, and offerings and say, hey, I have a Flute album, or I have an ebook, what went wrong if they're finding themselves just like in this forest of crickets?
Oh, I've been waiting for this question. We did not already cover this. I could do an entire podcast episode talking about this one. Let me tell you. Okay, so the first biggest mistake. Ooh, this is one that gets me real jazzed up. People don't start building their audiences until they have something to offer. I cannot tell you how many people I have had come to me and they're like, oh, I just, sunk in $20,000 creating this album and I launched it and I'm talking about it and nobody's buying it. Or I just spent, $10,000. I hired a developer to build this awesome website and, we created this thing and blah, 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 and we launched it and nobody's buying it. And I'm like, okay, well, what does your audience look like? How are you marketing it? And, their Instagram is like still private or only has like 200 people and they post maybe like, a couple times a month. I'm like, well, there's your problem. Like, what do you think? You're just going to launch this and be like, here's this new album and, people are going to flock to you. Like, they don't know who you are. If you want people to buy your things, you have to have an audience that is ready and waiting and supports you and knows you and likes you and trusts you. And if you don't have that, like you just wasted a lot of time and money is the reality of it. So like, ooh, don't do that. If you even have some semblance of an idea that at some point in the future, you want to sell something, whether it's a service like flute lessons or you want to do an ebook or a digital course or do coaching, anything like that, literally anything. If you have some semblance of an idea that you're going to have something that you want people to buy from you, you need to start building your audience like yesterday. And this is where that mindset shift comes in about thinking about this. This is not a hobby. It needs to be your business, because the more that you invest into this, the more your return you're going to see. That's how social media works. It's give and take. You can't just put up a post and pop up some hashtags and be like, all right, I'm going to sit back and wait for the likes to roll in, right? You're going to get like 2 likes and that's how it works. But if you are out there and, 30 minutes a day, you're going on and engaging and building relationships and liking and commenting and finding new people who are your exact target audience, and you're showing them love and supporting them and cheering them on, right? Then they're going to be there supporting you and cheering you on when you have things to launch, right? So that is, ooh, it gets me real jazzed up. That's like, honestly, it's one of the biggest mistakes that I see. I see it so frequently. And also people who are still in school. Oh man, that one too. Oh, well, I'm still in school. I'll just, I don't have time for this. I have courses and blah, blah, blah. I'll figure it out when I graduate. And like, oh, I'm getting my degree in flute. Like, I feel like I can say this because I was there. Like, I did this. So like, sorry if this is calling people out, because it probably is. Like, I say this because I love you. Like, don't be me. Okay. I was like, oh, it'll be fine. Like, I'm just going to take my auditions and, like get a part-time job and whatever. Like, girl, that's not how it works. Okay. We can all look at the statistics of how many orchestra jobs there are per year that even pay a livable wage. Like, you're gonna have to supplement your income for the majority of orchestra jobs anyway, to be honest. But anyway, getting ranty here. When you're in school, you have to start building it. You can't just let yourself fall into the trap of, oh, well, my teacher says I need to be practicing 8 hours a day. And that's just a whole other aside. But, you have to start building it now. That's just the reality. You're not going to graduate and walk off stage and be like, oh, great, I have this degree that I just paid, $50,000 for. And there's going to be a line of people lined up around the block waiting to work with you. Like, that'd be great. But that's not how it works. And so what happened to me is I ended up in a normal 9-to-5 that I was freaking miserable in. And I walked into that office every single day feeling like my soul was being sucked out of me like a Dementor from Harry Potter, Like, I wish that somebody would have just sat me down and been direct with me about this and been like, Nicole, you're living in freaking La La Land, okay? Like, love you, but get it together. Like, oh, I wish somebody would have, but nobody did. And so I was, living in La La Land, and I paid for it, let me tell you, because I was miserable for many years working in a 9-to-5 until I figured this out. So do yourselves a favor, even if you're in school, make time for it. Find the time, start building your audience, and it will pay off later. The more time you invest into it, the more you're going to get out of it.
Yes, I totally agree. After my master's, it was TJ Maxx, and it was like soul sucked out. I completely agree with that analogy. Yeah. And then you have to say, okay, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to make it work. And that's one of the beautiful things about you ladies being on this podcast. And that's one of the passions behind this podcast, is to tell listeners of all ages, but younger listeners, like, this is what I wish I would have known when, right? Whether it's, how to practice efficiently or social media efficiently or whatever efficiently, you ladies letting me pick your brain and you sharing these nuggets of, I wish I would have known, that's the beauty of, this time together and sharing. So Jolene or Taylor, anything in regards to soul sucking experiences?
I have a piggybacking testament to what Nicole has just said of if you're already in school. And I just like had a light bulb that I think my audience came from me starting when I was in school. I did not realize that, but I started a blog in grad school. And I remember one day that this was a long time ago. I mean, things are a little different. I was using Twitter to like just share the links to it and like following people who had flute in their name. Like, that's all I did at that point. Like, Instagram didn't even have videos at that point in time. Like, so obviously things have changed a bit. There's a lot more content out there, but I was writing this blog as a grad student. I remember one day, one of our fellow grad flute players came in and was like, my friend so-and-so really likes your blog. They're from Michigan. And I'm like, what? Like, somebody knows who I am and who I've never met. And I was still a student. And if you're afraid of like, talking like an authority on something while you're a student, which is probably the thing that holds one back, for me, it's talking about my experience with, just talking from experience. You are the authority on your experience. Nobody can tell you it's wrong. And other ways to present content too are like highlighting other people, such as in interviews. That's a great way to get people to know you. So there are different ways to get people to know who you are and to share things other than just teaching people how it is. Because that can feel kind of weird for people, and that's with good reason. So that's not the only option.
Awesome. And Taylor?
Well, I was just exactly why Jolene's practice room revelations exist is because it's not called practice room perfect. It's learning in the process and sharing it, and people relate to that. So knowing that you can talk about something about you learning in the process. And that can be what it is you're talking about. No one's asking you in this moment to talk about the thing that you're the expert on that might not exist, because that's very likely. And you shouldn't talk about something like, if you're a fetus, like, don't talk about something you don't know about, but you have plenty to talk about. And there's definitely a place to start, and you'll figure it out. But like, you have to start with something, and like, no one's asking you as a student to be the expert on something yet. You'll get to that place, but just remembering, like, you have to start.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. So I know we've talked a lot about social media and website design and what you ladies are all about. I always like to, at the very end of the shows, just open the floor for one last shout out or anything that you're passionate about, because I find myself sometimes saying, okay, that's a wrap. And then all the guests go, no, 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 no. So if you have, something just aching on your heart that you want to share, now's your time.
So we actually have something as a thank you to your listeners that we would love to share with them. And we have a template it's a template of the copy we use for our home pages for our clients' websites, and people can download it. It's free. It's on our website on our homepage. And if they're feeling really stuck on where to get started with their copy and with their website, they can download that and start with some guidance, and hopefully that'll start, setting off some ideas and some light bulbs that we would love to share with them.
Oh, thank you so much. That is so kind of you. Yeah, I'm going to go right to the website right after this and click on it, because I do not want to forget. That's amazing. Thank you, ladies.
Yeah. And then for me, if anybody has any questions about, Instagram, social media, marketing, websites, anything of the like, clearly I'm very passionate about chatting about all of this. So send me a DM on Instagram. My personal Instagram is at Nicole Ricardo, or you can find the NR Media account. It's at NR Media with an underscore. So feel free to DM either of those. And, like I said earlier, we're not pushy people, and we're all very direct and upfront. So, we're here for you, to give you advice, feedback, brainstorm things with you, whatever you need. Feel free to send a DM.
Awesome. And Jolene?
And if you are interested in booking one of our services, we are available for projects. You can go to our website, NicoleRicardoMedia.com, and learn about our packages and what we offer for web design, branding. We have website templates for Wix they're all designed to convert. As we mentioned earlier, that's what we're about. We want you to do the thing. So you can go to our website, and there's a booking page. You just click the link and you'll fill out a little questionnaire, and you'll actually book a quick call with Nicole, so you can learn more about projects.
Awesome. And so you guys are booking for the month of October, is that correct?
Yes.
Nice. So this episode will go out next Saturday. It's the last Saturday in September. So with wrapping up the month with a big bang, if you are somebody out there who is looking to jazz up your website and everything we've talked about today, it sounds like you guys have openings for October.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
Good. That's good to know. Yeah. And I definitely, in the show notes, will put all of your links and your Instagram. Follow Taylor here, follow Jolene, follow Nicole here, and your website, so that way it's really easy access, for people to get to those sites. Yeah, amazing. And so in the last portion of the show, I like to do a fun segment called Picks. It can be anything under the sun. It could be your favorite book, movie, food, whatever you want to share. So take it away, Nicole.
Okay, well, I'm going to panic pick because I saw this and then I totally forgot to give it some thought. So my current pick is I started watching Long Island Medium yesterday and binged episodes until 2 a.m. because I just could not turn it off. And I am anybody who knows me, I do not like feelings. I don't like crying. I just don't like feeling. And I was sitting there watching every episode, just sobbing, just how beautiful it was. And, she's making these people feel so good. I was just oh my God. So that's my pick, is Long Island Medium.
Love it. And Jolene?
My pick was going to be Get Organized with the Home Edit on Netflix, but I already mentioned that, and I feel like I can't say it again as my pick, so I'm going to pick something else, which is my favorite go-to quarantine drink, which is, this is from Nicole, by the way, is taking red wine and adding like LaCroix to it. However, if you go to the grocery store, get yourself San Pellegrino, Clementine Peach, and put it in your red wine with a little ice, and it's the only drink I ever want to drink again. Oh. It's so good. Tastes like sangria. It's delicious. You have to try it.
Oh, wow. Cool. And Taylor?
So I recently started watching a show called Howard's End, which is a period piece, which I never, ever, ever watched. But I was so hooked on it that I read the book, or I just got the book. It's super old. It's by Ian Forster, but it's the first show I've watched in a while that actually made me think, as I'm very used to watching shows that are just like distractions. So if you want a good like nighttime snuggle up book, Howard's End, that's my recommendation.
Awesome. I'll have to check it out. Are you on Goodreads by chance?
I'm not. I just kind of stumbled onto this, but I have been reading a lot more, and so I would love to hear more about Goodreads.
Yeah, it's a really cool site where you get to select the book covers and say, oh, I've read XYZ, and then, oh, I really want to read ABC, and you put on your wish list. And then you add, like I can add Nicole, Jolene, Taylor as like Goodreads friends, and that way I can see, oh, Jolene's reading this. And then Taylor recommends this, and Nicole wants to read that. So it's kind of a cool book club thing.
I love it.
Yeah.
Be Goodreads friends.
Angela McHouston, who's with Music Fitness, she and I are Goodread friends, and so we share book recommendations there. So besides the pick that I put down on my PDF here, my pick for today that I'm going to add on right now are all of y'all's earrings and jewelry. I love the blue and the red and the silver. It's just, I'm loving it. And then something a little more boring, I guess. I love a good breakfast. I love my boiled eggs, and I love fruit, and I love a big hearty bowl of oatmeal. And I have such a sweet tooth that if I just do oatmeal, it's kind of bland. So I spruce it up and put some sweet things in there, natural sweet things. So I love my figs and dates in my morning oatmeal. So that's my pick for today.
Love that.
Love it.
After 130 episodes, you have to get really creative with your picks.
It's good. I like it.
Oh, shoot. Well, thank you so much, ladies, for your time, talent, and energy. I'm so grateful for everything that you have provided us today. And I know that I have benefited and I have grown, and I know the listeners will feel the same way. So thank you again, and I hope you all have a great weekend.
Oh, thank you, Heidi. Thanks so much for having us.
Anytime. Today's sponsor is brought to you by J&K Productions. Did you know that not only are they a production company for podcasts, but they are a recording company for musicians? Any musical recording needs that you may have, J&K Productions can fulfill that need. They have all the necessary equipment and expertise to record your next flute recording for college or graduate auditions, competitions, summer festivals, or a flute album. J&K Productions can record any setup imaginable, from solo flute, small chamber, flute and piano, and much more. Consider J&K Productions for your next recording project. Contact them at jkproductions.media. Thank you for listening to the Flute 360 podcast. For more information, please visit HeidiKBegay.com. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please rate and review in the iTunes store. Let's talk about flute.